One of the things I think is really special about listening to music and listening to it intentionally. Like, background music is one thing. It's nice to have some things on, something catches your attention, you go, okay, cool. I like to actually sit down and listen, and there's something about a listening experience when you feel your system, however you're listening, and it could be even on headphones, but if it pulls you in, if you feel like you're listening and you go, oh, okay, oh, that piano, and you start to pay attention to the details, that's when you're kind of sucked in. You're like, okay, cool. You're into how does this make you feel? And what are you noticing? You walk into a room, and somebody's painted the front wall and you go, it's a good front wall. Okay, cool. What about the rest of the room? But you paint the whole room, including the ceiling, and now you've got this opportunity for expression that you walk in and now you're immersed. That's the same thing with sound. And I'm so fascinated with where we can go with immersive audio. I started out as a musician in college and playing in bands, and I got to my first club and realized that there was somebody in the back of the room twisting knobs to make us sound good, and I was curious. And I started asking questions, and finally the guy behind the desk said, all right, I'll show you a little bit. And so I just kept following along. I'd show up and he'd teach me stuff, and then he'd say, all right, I'm gonna take a break, you run it. And then he'd say, I'm taking a night off, you run it. And then he'd say, I quit, you're the house sound guy. And so I got to learn live sound, which I thought was fantastic in a sense of paying attention. You have to be present, you have to pay attention. And that served me in the music world about learning to work with other bands that I was not in, and I found I had a talent for helping other people sound more like themselves, like really help them find what it is about them that made them, present themselves in that way. And I also had a passion for it. I had the technological background as a math and computer science major in college and a musician on the other side. The apex of all of my interests brought me to this point here, and I've been doing this for, like I said, more than 30 years now, and I love it. So mastering is the last step of the artistic process and the first step of the distribution phase. So from a technical side of things, mastering is creating the physical or digital master that goes off to the manufacturer, replicator, distributor to get it out to the world. So whether it's a Blu-ray disc, it's a cassette or an LP or high-res files, different masters are required for that. An artist comes in and has a bunch of songs. My job is to help it feel more like a body of work than a collection of songs. A cohesiveness. The best hope we can get is when people are listening to music, they're listening to the music, not the differences between songs. And as an analogy, if you want to think about like making a movie, for example, is somebody who's doing color correction through different scenes. You don't want the scenes to be like different chapters of different books. You want it to flow, so you're paying attention to the story, the art form. If you're, in music, same thing. If we're looking for differences, we start paying attention to the process. It'd be like a movie, watching a movie, looking for the green screen and not paying attention to the story. If the process of listening takes us away from being fully aware or actively listening, then we're not engaging fully where the artist hopes that the fans are listening. So that listening experience should be something that's more transportative than it is sort of diagnostic. The listening experience, so how does one hear that in a good way? And I would say the better the system, the more resolving the system, the easier it is for people to listen to. And I don't mean like sheer number of speakers or power or, an 18-inch woofer or something crazy. Like, it doesn't need to be massive. It just needs to be, to me, efficient, clean, distortion free. It needs to not get in the way of the sound. And so simple is great. I'm a fan of listening on speakers. I like a room. I think one of the things about listening, a listening environment, sitting on the couch, is you can sit with other people. I think music is best shared. I like the experience of sitting with other people and talking about it. You hear it, hey, what about that? And at that point, then you can go, what about that guitar solo? What about those vocals? What about that? Knowing that there are ways to affect the room, you can only go so far by putting curtains up, putting things that are stopping reflections, ceilings, irregular rooms, a non, square rectangular room. If you have doorways or opens or things like that, those are things that you can't correct by having physical changes if that's your listening position. Modern receivers these days, I think, are fantastic in things like Dirac and others that have the room correction capabilities built in to actually listen to your room, running tones through it, running, and analyzing the sound and being able to go, okay, cool. There's a buildup of 330 hertz in this. If we take this out, then it's more flat. You don't get a honky bit. You don't get a resonance or a built-up frequency. Oh, it's too bright. Let's ease that back a little bit. And so fans of music that don't have technical capabilities to really set up their room, I think that receivers, a fantastic inclusion is the ability to help people sound better. Like, it's really to help them make the experience better. Use it. It's built in. It's awesome. It does fantastic. In a professional environment, I'm going to hire an acoustician to come in, but in somebody's living room, you've got good tools built in. There's so many talented people out there that are able to make music these days, and there's like so much music available. But I also think that we have a tendency to try to get into a rut of the things that we listen to, and we just so follow what's comfortable. I think one of the things about a good sound system is exploration. I think it turns you on to things like, I think as a listener, one of the fun things for me is finding things that I don't know. Listening to styles of music or listening to forms of expression that might be different, And I think that curiosity of a good listening system can draw you into things you may not have turned yourself on to before and help you dig into it a little bit further. Back in the 1600s, church music, we're doing surround at the time. They put the choir in the back because they wanted to be voiced from up above. And so there was a feeling by putting sound coming from a different spot to create an emotion or create an experience or to say something. I think the opening up of immersive audio is fantastic for composers. I mean, I would say from an engineer who geeks out about all the technical stuff and has a lot of fun with it, I think from a standpoint of artistic expression and attentive listening for fans is awesome. Done right, a musician can move things around and cause a sense of motion, or front to back at a concert, or interest from up above, or things, conversations around or cross, or, there's so many things you can do with it, getting out of this two-speaker paradigm. Then you're into the experience of what the art is, and you're getting past the mechanics of listening. That means I've done my job in that sense, and that also means the system, the playback system. We're just getting started, and I really am looking forward to seeing artists push the boundaries of what they can do with expression, because I think that's going to push the boundaries of the listener and everything in between.